All right, I'll say it. Mick Dundee here, speaking of my own free will. The following podcast contains spoilers for Wolf Creek 2, which features a far superior Mick to myself. Okay, I'll say it. That's not a spoiler. This is a spoiler.
This is Diabolical, the comedy podcast where four long-suffering friends dissect film's most dastardly schemes, then compete to improve them. I'm your host Gaz, and this week's instalment of Spooktober is 2013's Aussie horror sequel, Wolf Creek 2. So, Peril Pals, try not to attract any unwanted attention whilst walking alone across the Outback. Jesus, this new running gag is like pulling teeth, isn't it? And let's get diabolical! Hello and welcome to this week's pod, wherein these kangaroo colours and I comprise the panel of peril who will compete to see who can improve the villainous plot of the week the best to earn points for our leaderboard in the show's competitive round. But first, if you could tell the Peril Pals listening out there in podcast land your names, and tell me all about a time that you have felt in very real danger, like Ralph Wiggum. And we'll begin with Ben.
Hello there, Peril Pals. Ben here. And a time I felt in very real danger includes friend o' the podcast, Prenders. I suppose he's like the fifth Beatle to this panel of peril, isn't he, in a way?
Yeah. He's the George Martin.
He's the Peter Sutcliffe to our Beatles.
To our Myra Hindley.
Oh.
Anyway, this was back when we were in Air Cadets and we'd be on the rifle range firing guns and there'd be two people firing and the next two would be waiting behind on some benches. It was Prenders and another person firing, and the person next to Prenders said misfire, so their round didn't go off. And so the instructor said stop, but Prenders, I guess, hadn't heard it.
Oh, Jesus.
He just loaded another round and was getting ready to fire. And the instructor was saying, Prendergast, stop. And Prendergast turned round with the rifle and pointed at us all.
Jesus.
Everyone was like duck into the floor. Shit!
Did he fire off? Did he do an ND?
No.
Oh.
He just turned around and went like, what? Just spinning the end of the rifle.
Fucking hell.
So what's an ND for us civvies?
Negligent discharge.
I've done one. Do you want two of those?
I'd be more surprised if you did one that wasn't negligent.
Craig, you're so dirty. Do you call a spade a spade?
So there you go, Prenders. A nice little memory for you there, where you nearly killed us all.
Very good. Next, let's hear from Super Dude.
Yeah, not Craig, as Adam just called me.
Oh, beg your pardon. Super Dude. You almost deity-like presence on our podcast.
Thank you very much. Craig here, Peril Pals, the man they call Super Dude. Does everybody know that I owe Adam my life? Let's just say that one night I was intoxicated, and let's not go any further into it than that. I think Sam Taylor decided for us that we would go for a walk down the beach at 3 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
Tide was in, but we walked along the concrete wall, which was quite a steep slope. I'd call it a 45-degree adverse camber. And it was covered in moss. And I slipped and started sliding down into the ocean and pretty much had just decided that I wasn't going to fight it. And I was just going. But then a hand came out of the darkness and grabbed me, and it was Adam's hand. And he pulled me back from the abyss, out of the dark ocean and onto the land.
Yeah.
And we were safe again to continue our walk and carry on chatting bollocks.
I remember that night very fondly. I still do. Oh, I think about it every now and again. Honestly, it's one of the big nights that I do remember with a lot of fondness.
It was a lot of fun. We also watched quite a lot of Peppa Pig. I don't think we were... Oh, no, I know for a fact we did not go to sleep that night. Because the next day was Bank Holiday Monday and we just went straight back to the pub.
We created movie posters that night as well. Do you remember?
I don't remember that.
Yeah. I said, come on, let's make up movie posters. And we did. We drew loads of movie posters, then presented them to everybody else who was there. It was fucking great. It was brilliant. It was such a good night.
I'd like to see those.
Yeah. It was good.
It was good, mate. But yeah, I came very close to death. As close as I've ever come, I think.
Well, I'm sure Adam's got an amazing tale that's going to top that. It's going to be brilliant, this. Let's listen to Adam's tale, everybody.
He probably sat on a missile or something, didn't he?
I'm not going to tell you one from my time in the armed forces, but yes, one time I unknowingly received evidence of a politically motivated murder carried out by the NSA, and I unwittingly became the target of a relentless government surveillance operation. So for a while it was, touch and go whether I make it. But I fortunately...
Were you an enemy of the state?
Yeah, I was, funnily enough.
Are you allowed to talk about this?
The cat's out the bag now, isn't it?
Yes.
It was in all the tabloids.
It was in the tabloids. I was called Mr. X at the time.
It was a centre spread. It was him lying across it.
Yeah.
Just like cushion covering his valuables.
I seductively approved this message written in a speech bubble coming out of my mouth.
He was called Deep Throat due to his proclivity for 70s porn. As for me, pretty much any time in a car with my dad growing up. Just an absolute lunatic. Absolute lunatic behind the wheel.
Yeah, oh my God. One time I went down to Newport with Gaz and his dad overtook a 16-wheel lorry. It was very hairy. We almost didn't make it.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's a minor miracle that he hasn't had a full-on head-on collision and perished.
Yeah.
How odd? Because you're such a good driver.
Well, he is as well, but he must be to steer at that speed with that accuracy, threading the needle.
One particular incident I remember was he took a wrong turn off a 2 or a 3-lane motorway, I'm not sure which, and he took a turn back on, or so he thought, to the motorway, and went straight into the outside lane to start overtaking, flew up to about 100 miles an hour, and then a car came around the corner straight towards us. And it was a regular single carriageway, folks. And we flew off into a field.
Jesus Christ.
Wolf Creek 2 is a 2013 Australian horror film co-written and directed by Greg McLean, and is a sequel to the 2005 film Wolf Creek, and it stars John Jarratt reprising his role as Mick Taylor. It was premiered on 30th of August 2013 at the Venice Film Festival, then released in Australia on the 20th of February 2014. The film follows a young German couple and a British tourist who fall victim to the kidnapping and torture of Mick Taylor, a deranged xenophobic killer while travelling in the Australian Outback. Similar to the 2005 film, the plot is based upon the real-life murders of backpackers by Ivan Milat in the 1990s and Bradley John Murdoch in 2001. The film received mixed reviews from critics, praising the acting from Jarratt and Corr, but criticism for the violence and gore. Pretty good rhyme there, hey? The film went on to gross nearly 5 million buckaroos at the Australian box office, and to my mind, it's a superior sequel to its accomplished yet grim forebear, managing a tricky balancing act of humour, action and horror in equal measure, with numerous standout set pieces that I'm sure we will discuss later. Followed by 2 seasons of television, the second of which comes highly recommended by yours truly, a third film, Wolf Creek Legacy, is currently in development, having been announced on August 30th, 2024. But what did the panel think of this one, I wonder? And we'll begin with Adam.
Well, you never underestimate Hollywood's ability to turn a terrible series of murders into a blockbuster film sort of thing. Yeah, they've done it before and they're doing it again with this, it's quite
Hollywood,
a lot of fun. Well, when I say Hollywood, I use it in the loosest possible terms.
Encompassing Australia, Bollywood.
Hollywood, mate. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's got all like the usual sort of horror tropes and stuff in it, like the people doing the stupid things like, no, don't do that, and and all that kind of stuff. But the villain in this, compared to some of the murderers and sort of fantasy characters and stuff like that, is actually quite charismatic in a way, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's quite likable 90% of the time until he flips his lid and decides. And you kind of, at the start, you kind of go, yeah, I can see why he's a bit cheesed off. to be honest, especially with the coppers and stuff. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Cheesed off.
yeah, cheesed off. I like to use that word. He's really he's really knocked. You know, he's got out the wrong side of bed.
Joe Scully, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But yeah, he deserved what he got there, didn't he? For me, it was like some nice little surprises with the usual sort of tropes, a likable villain. Yeah, like I say, a few nice surprises in there as well. So I thought it was quite good. Bit confusing at one, you know, why the wimpy British guy all of a sudden, like running, decides to start going, oh, actually, I'm going to try and be a bit of a hero. I was just like, oh, didn't see where that was coming from, but it was good. Yeah, I did enjoy it. I was laughing quite a lot actually. So because it's just.
At what point did you think he tried to be a hero?
Well, it just goes from when he finally wakes up and he sort of starts trying to fight back, doesn't he? And he's like, just to me, like all the way through, he's shitting himself, and then all of a sudden he's sat there tied down, and all of a sudden he's sort of like he gets some courage. And I was just like, oh, okay.
Even Popeye had a moment where he's had all he can take and he can't take no more.
Yeah. I wouldn't compare Popeye with that kid.
I thought it was more like desperation, like a fight for survival than heroism.
Well, he's tied down, so if it's fight or flight, he has to fight, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he did try and flight and it hadn't worked very effectively.
Yeah,
Right.
and then as soon as he can get free, he takes the flight option.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's not going to be like a regular watch, but I'd happily watch it again.
How dare you? Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it for the most part. Next, let's move on to Ben.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Adam there. You know, obviously I'm not a huge horror fan, but this one I really engaged with. I thought it was fun. A lot of fun moments. And what kept me engaged was constantly asking, well, why the hell is he doing this? I think the reveal of that is excellent.
Yeah.
It kind of builds up and you're never sure what his motivation is until right at the end. I wasn't sure at first about the transition of the protagonists. I'd kind of, you know, I'd set myself on this couple and then it switches out to the British guy. And I thought, do I like that? But on reflection, I think it was quite skillfully done. I do think it works actually in the end. So overall, I give it, g'day Cobber. If you want all the gore of Saw, but with wit and an actual storyline, then take a trip to Wolf Creek 2.
But what is that out of?
And that's out of Struth!
Stoner Crow.
Good stuff. And let's hear from the super dude.
Well, as you know, I had seen and enjoyed the original Wolf Creek many years ago, though. I don't know why I never got around to watching the sequel. I don't think I'd go so far as to call it the Evil Dead 2 of Wolf Creeks, but it really kind of ramps up the fun and the almost cartoonish aspects. The first one is quite grim and bleak, and it was also super violent and gory, but this one seems to have its tongue kind of firmly in its cheek.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear you guys talk about Mick in terms of being like a charismatic individual. Because I did wonder when it started, especially pitting him against pigs, you know, cuppers, whether they were going for the anti-hero, you know, villain turned anti-hero trope, almost like a Terminator 2-esque thing where Mick was going to be the character we root for because those two coppers had it coming. They were pricks.
Yeah.
You know, it's very clearly set up to have you on side with him. But I was quickly disabused of that notion when he threatened to rape the girl and also then cut her boyfriend up in front of her.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. In fact, if anything, he's even more of a cunt than he was in the first one.
When he sets the other copper alight, when he's still alive, that's the bit I thought,
Sadistic.
he's not a nice man.
Oh, that's good. I love that sequence.
He's a jerk. The more I hear about him. Because the other thing I thought is there one group more universally hated than the police? It's probably German tourists, right? So I did wonder if that's what they were going for. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this because it is a lot of fun. I liked that it wasn't just kind of like a obvious rehash of the first one. It was, it did some different stuff. The truck chase, for example, really cool. Bit of a twist that I wasn't expecting after seeing the first one. Some great dialogue. It's funny. There's some really good gory moments in it. It's a well-made film. And also some really beautiful landscape photography in this.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Makes, Wolf Creek, which is a real place, not spelled the same way, but it makes it look like a place you would want to visit. You can understand why so many tourists end up there and why so many never leave.
It's true.
And that's out of 10.
Just to pick up on the point that Craig made there, it being sufficiently different to the first film, it's something that they carry through to the TV show as well. The first film is very dark and very grim, and Mick is very much more of a background character in this. In Wolf Creek 2, he's pretty much the protagonist, isn't he? He is very charismatic and likable due to John Jarratt's excellent performance. And then the TV show first season is kind of a revenge thriller against Mick, which didn't really work for me. But then season 2, he hijacks a bus full of tourists. And,
oh, wow.
Whoa, it's good. So yeah, watch season 2 if you get the chance. Yeah, it's really good. Going back to this film, I think it's a step above the first, just straight away from the opening sequence where Mick gets unjustifiably pulled over by cops when he wasn't speeding. I think it's something quite special straight away with this character. Quite a delicate balancing act for someone who is a serial killing rapist to make him that likable. And I think it did turn off reviews at the time. I remember the Empire review is quite scathing.
You were listening to Semlin.
Yeah, the gamble with changing the hero characters. A short while into the film, I don't think the Katarina and Jürgen last very long, maybe about half an hour of the film.
Yeah,
before
about
they get changed over to the English character whose name I have forgotten.
What's an English name?
Broadhurst.
John.
Oh, I've got it written down. What's he called? Paul. He's called Paul.
It was either John, Paul, George, or Ringo, wasn't it? Those are the 4 English names.
It is quite a jarring change, particularly because you kind of bedded into reading subtitles with the German characters.
Right.
And it's quite episodic as a film, I suppose. You've got that very bizarre sequence in the house in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Really interesting, that sequence.
Yeah, it is. It's unsettling.
Yeah, you're questioning everything.
Yeah, very odd. And again, it's shot beautifully. There's one particular shot of Mick chasing Paul on horseback, coming over a ridge with the sun filling up the entire screen behind, like the setting sun, peach-coloured. It's just, really, really beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this film and the series as a whole.
Which, again, is massively different to the first, right? Because the first, I think, is mostly set at night, right? And when it's not, it's indoors. It's in this kind of horrible kind of dungeon, right?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as Mick comes into it, it's set at night. But there's a lot during the day before he comes into it.
Yeah,
before the
been a
car
while since I've
breaks
seen
down.
the first one.
Yeah, it's worth a rewatch. It is a lot darker than this. Skewering of the spine being kind of the centerpiece of the first film.
Right.
Yeah, and being a particularly grim denouement. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this film, and I'm glad that the panel of Peril enjoyed it somewhat too.
Just to pick up on what you said there about, like, and we've all said, like, Mick's like a likable character.
Yeah,
but that's true to life, isn't it? For a lot of serial killers.
Oh, the neighbours always say, yeah. I thought perhaps the intention of making him, if not likable, kind of relatable in some way, is that it gives you as the audience hope that Paul is going to talk him out of killing him and let him go. When he does the quiz and everything, you think, is he going to let him go? Feels like he might let him go. So obviously when you find out he's definitely not.
Kind of disarms you, doesn't he, with his chat and stuff like that. That's right, and then you kind of think, is he going to go? And then...
Disarm is a great way to describe it, yeah. I didn't actually mean that as a joke.
Let's see what everybody's favourite sequences were, and we'll begin with Super Dude.
For me, it has to be a specific part of the chase sequence where the road fills up with kangaroos crossing.
Oh, that was on my list.
Great. That was where I knew that this could go anywhere and that it was going to be just a fun, kind of almost cartoonish spin on the first one. Kind of, like I said, not quite Evil Dead 2 level of crazy, wacky antics, but relative to the first one, it kind of has that feel.
Tonally very different. Yeah. And next, let's hear Adam's favourite sequence.
It's the development of Mick, but it's right at the end when you find out he's just got this huge underground network, and he goes from being like this sort of opportunistic serial killer, like bumping people off in tents and stuff. Then he's just got this complete network, a torture chamber with all these bodies, some living still and things like that. And then it's like it ratchets up that feeling of dread, doesn't it? A couple of notches straight away when you find out all this stuff, and it's like, wow, and it takes you down a couple of steps as you go through the film, and takes away that sort of nice feeling you have at the start.
Yeah.
I really like that, and then that underground network is the icing on the cake for me.
Yeah, apparently that's kind of based on a real thing, like abandoned mining colonies across the outback, which have been used by some of the killers mentioned in the opening.
Did you say one of them was called Robert Murder or something like that?
Talk about nominative determinism.
Bradley John Murdoch is the other.
Oh, Murdoch.
Yeah,
that's an evil name. Evil Australian.
Yeah.
That leaves us with Ben's favourite sequence.
I mentioned the kangaroo part was on my list. Another part that really stood out because I had no idea what to expect when I started this film. So seeing that cop's head explode
Yeah.
was incredible. But then the line that follows it, and I guess I'll have to put it together because it was just so incredible. Mick makes it to the cop car. The first thing he says is, "Whoa, shot!"
Yeah.
And then I knew I was in for a film that is not the usual horror.
My favourite sequence, I mean, it's the entire opening for me. I know Ben's already picked a section of it, but God, I just love it. Because the fact that it changes the tone up instantly from the first one was quite a pleasant surprise. And it's just so delicious. They're just being arseholes, these two small town coppers, and just to see them instantly get their comeuppance is brilliant. Because he says to them like a couple of times, "You sure you want to do this? You sure you want to give me a ticket?" And then the guy that's alive, the copper that's alive that hasn't had his head exploded by a sniper rifle, after he's severed his spine and put him back in his car, he's just going, "I can make you speed and take you go away, mate." So what do you think you're going to do now? You're crippled. You can't move apart from your head. And then Mick, of course, just said, "How about I just make you go away?" It's like, oh, chef's kiss. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Just a brilliant kind of extremely violent slapstick sequence with a brilliant punchline. That sequence is magic.
Great casting as well. Our old mate, Joe Scully from Neighbours.
Yeah, that was great to see him.
Was it?
Yeah. That's the copper who gets burned, yeah.
I didn't notice.
Holly Valance's dad, of course. Not in real life.
Yeah, on the show.
He's got a lot to answer for now.
On the yeah. On the show.
Let's move along swiftly to what our favourite lines were. And we'll begin this time with, let's say Adam.
So it's a quick bit of dialogue between Paul and Mick, and Paul says, "So it's sort of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?" And Mick says, "Yeah, except you don't get to phone a friend if you get one wrong because you're too busy screaming in fucking agony."
Yeah, that was mine as well. So I'll go with the other one I mentioned right after the opening sequence where he catches up to Joe Scully's cop character. His little nod to Babe. He says, "That'll do, pig."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. And Ben?
I've got so many. Every line that came out of Mick's mouth is a candidate, isn't it? But there's one, and it's probably the simplest one of all. It made me laugh the hardest. It's when he's driving the truck and he looks down at the owner of the truck who he's killed. And he's kind of laughing. He goes, Eh? Like the dead guy. It's brilliant.
Then he hits one of the kangaroos as well. He goes, "Sorry, Skippy."
Yeah.
No, shit, flying kangaroo. Every line that came out of his mouth was gold, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he's great.
And John Jarratt, by the way, he's wonderful, isn't he? He's such a nice-looking dude in real life.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah. He was like a game show producer prior to taking up acting.
Oh, right.
But he'd been in maybe one or two more things before the first Wolf Creek. He hadn't done much acting at all. Yeah, the only other thing I've seen him in is Greg McLean's killer croc film, Rogue, where he plays an Oscar in that one. That's worth a look as well. Rogue's good. My favourite line, God, there's too many to pick from. I'm going to go for one from the opening sequence again with the coppers. And they're kind of antagonising him, asking him what he's doing in the area. And he says, "Oh, I always travel up north when I'm hunting, you know? Not a lot of pigs down south." Whoops. And he does like a cheeky little smile. Just like needling back at them, almost trying to get them to antagonise him further, in a way, I suppose, because he kind of decided, I want to do these guys. Yeah, good stuff. Any more to add? I've got a couple more.
I've got one, which I think we can all enjoy. Jesus, Rutger, are you part bloody donkey? It's holding with his penis.
Yeah. I've got one when he kills Rutger, funnily enough, which is just like, oh, it's awful. He slits his throat and then decapitates him with his Bowie knife quite slowly. But then he hits with this doozy, "Let me hear you talk back now, you dopey cunt." Just called him a dopey cunt. Another one to the cops. Before he's set the remaining cop on fire, Mick just says, "Fuck me, you pair of stupid bastards. Look at the mess you've made. And I've got to clear it up."
Yeah.
He's a card.
That house scene, we all mentioned it before. I thought I was going to mention it, but I thought somebody else is going to say it is their favourite part, so that's why I didn't mention it. Even if this doesn't make the cut, I just thought I'd want to talk about it anyway, because it was so unsettling, but then it was like, because he's not saying anything as well. It's just like, and they've made him this broth.
Yeah.
And then the two people are obviously like, are they husband and wife or brother and sister, or are they related to Mick?
Maybe both.
Are they his parents? Was one thing I thought when I was first watching it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Is it like a Hills Have Eyes sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre type thing?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is what jumped into my head.
100%. That's the first thing I thought, and I was just like, how long can this go on? And it was just like, it sort of froze you, didn't it? And you were just like, ugh.
Plays with your expectations, doesn't it? Because you see a situation like that, and the trope is that they're going to turn out to be worse. He's, out of the frying pan into the fire. And I think it reinforces that you're never quite sure what foot you're on with Mick in this. Like, he seems to be the more affable guy, but actually, if anything, he's worse. But of course he does. Let's let him go in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was odd, wasn't it? That whole bit, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
I actually rewound it and thought, did I miss something there? Because I was thinking, I was making a note when it happened. And I looked up and he was lying on the floor in the middle of the street. And I was like, oh, what did I miss then? Took it back a couple of minutes.
Does it mean he's got like a code or a certain kind of honor?
It's just to take the heat off him, wasn't it? He was basically framing him sort of in a way.
Yeah.
It's basically the same ending as the first film. He lets
First
one
one, yeah.
person go in that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's kind of an MO, maybe, like his narcissism, but I'll let one person go and they just won't be able to find me. They won't be able to prove anything, whatever it might be.
Oh, but his legend will spread to scare the others from coming there.
Possibly. I know there was a survivor of Ivan Milat who tried to convince the police for years, a backpacker, about this person, and the police didn't believe him, so maybe taking something from that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that sequence is brilliant. Very, very, very odd. Just comes out of nowhere and then settles you and discombobulates you.
It does, totally. Especially when he shoots at Mick and you think he scared him off, then you think, oh, they're fucked. And then it's like, oh, here we go again.
In Wolf Creek 2, Mick Taylor stalks the outback, specifically around the titular meteor crater, looking for tourists to torture/kill. Well, slash. This time around, he has to adjust his plans as his targets, German backpackers Rutger and Katarina, first fight back, resulting in a swift and brutal death for the blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy, followed by Katarina being rescued by an English tourist, Paul, as he passes by in his car. Katarina's death by a rifle bullet royally narks Mick, who vows to make the little pommy bastard pay for spoiling his fun. Chasing him through the outback, first in an 18-wheeler, finding him at a bizarre and creepy house in the middle of nowhere, and finishing off in an underground lair in a deadly quiz on the subject of Aussie history, Mick makes very clear that he hates foreigners and sees it as his role to clear up the vermin, as he calls them, that scuttle about his stomping grounds. But what did the Planel think of Mick's evil scheme? And this time...
Planel?
Planel? Is that what I said?
You did say Planel, yeah.
Leave it in. It's cool.
Yeah, we should change our name. Change our name to the Planel.
Planel of Peril.
And I think it's Super Dude's turn to begin.
His setup is pretty perfect, and people only get away from him because he wants them to. So you can't fault his plan for that reason.
Would you say he wins?
Yes, I think I would say he wins.
Yeah, he does, yeah. 100%, yeah.
The only way that he doesn't win, I suppose, is that he loses Katarina, which he wanted to keep her around for his fun.
Yeah.
And I think he loses a kind of a moral victory to Paul, which really pisses him off. Like a bit of pride as well, because he's sure that this Palm is not going to know anything about Australian history. And obviously it winds him up that he's a bit of an academic. So in that sense, he loses a bit. Paul is able to hit a nerve. So I suppose in a sense, he doesn't get everything that he wants, leaving the door open for us to improve. No following his plan.
Okay. Let's hear what Ben thought Mick's evil scheme.
He's coming straight in with the broccoli rating. Totally agree that Mick is the big winner in this film. If there are any winners, it's not Rutger. He loses his dick. It's not Katarina. She loses her head. It's not Paul. He loses some fingers. It's Mick. And with that in mind, he's getting 14 florets of broccoli.
Nice. Delicious.
Wowza.
Getting up there. Getting towards the top of the broccoli tree.
14 florets of broccoli force-fed to Phil Tufnell by Ant and Dec in the jungle.
Yeah.
Broccoli.
Give me those maggots.
Bush Tucker trial. Yeah, give me a mouthful of scorpions.
And let's see what Adam thought of Wolf Creek 2's evil scheme.
Even though he falls behind at some points, you never doubt for a second that he isn't going to regain total control. He's the king of all he surveys, old Mick.
Yeah, very much so. I'd agree with that. He's the master of his domain, being the outback. He knows every dirt trail. He knows every secret hidden camp. He knows how to deal with cops. He knows to go to Wolf Creek specifically to get the tourists that he wants, how isolated it is, yet how populated with tourists. He knows that's a good spot for him. He knows how to take care of unexpected people being involved, like the house with the two old deers. It's basically flawless, his plan, I would say. So we'll see how any of us can possibly improve upon it. But before we move on to the competitive round, we'd like to thank you for listening to our show so far. Please subscribe, leave us a written review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts if you can. It's the best platform to help us grow the podcast, and you Peril Pals are an important part in that process. We are a completely independent podcast, and a written review will net us many new listeners as it boosts our visibility on Apple's charts, which is the largest podcast platform out there. So please take a few minutes to write a few words and help spread the good word about the show. If you aren't on Apple, Rate us on your provider of choice and follow us on socials at DiabolicalPod, and visit our beautiful website at www.diabolicalpod.com. We have arrived at the section of the show where the panel of peril compete for precious peril points on the perilous leaderboard. Each member gets 1 vote, which will equal 1 point on the board. But do remember, you cannot vote for yourself, you saucy Barbies.
Oh, he's done
Pretty
it.
good. Pretty good.
Very nice.
Our task this week is to take the role of Mick and prevent any tourists from entering the Outback. Now, let's do... And I feel like we're going to begin with Ben.
Mick leans against the dusty outback rock and begins to roll himself a little misshapen cigarette. He pops it into his mouth, then pulls a lighter and a can of Lynx Africa body spray from his pocket. The fire, gushing from the makeshift flamethrower, lights the rolly with ease. "Flaming hell," he says with a dry chuckle. Puffing down the soothing smoke, he wanders over to his truck and checks the engine is still running. "Right, time for these buggers to cool off," he says with a dry chuckle. He tears a refrigerant canister from an old fridge and proceeds to spray it all over an unfortunate Scandinavian couple. "Oh, look, bloody Swedes," he says with a dry chuckle. "You ain't breathing too good, are ya? Let me help with that, eh?" He walks back to the truck and grabs a handful of old asthma inhalers. "Just a little puff, mate. You should be used to that, eh?" he says with a dry chuckle, as he frantically pumps the inhalers into his victims' mouths. "Time for the grand finale," he says with a dry chuckle. "I'm going to send you off in style. Hairstyle. Because, well, you'll see." He proceeds to squeeze a can of value hairspray into each Swedish orifice available to him, and even makes a few more for good measure. "Why are you doing this?" screams a Swede as Mick rams a 500ml can of Vogue Megahold into his gob. "I'm giving the old ozone layer a bit of a helping hand," says Mick with a dry chuckle. "If I make the sun angry enough, tourists will fry faster than a snag on the barbie." He sets the couple alight, releasing all of those harmful gases into the atmosphere. "And nobody wants bloody skin cancer," he says, with a moist chuckle.
A moist chuckle. So he's making a localized hole in the ozone layer to make it basically a place where you can't sunbathe. Or hike, really, I guess.
So, yeah, exactly. So he's making as well as the murders he's going to do anyway, he's also given the hole in the ozone layer, which is above Australia anyway, he's given it a helping hand to make it worse, to make it very inhospitable, so that tourists won't go there.
I don't want to jump the gun too much, but this is your best plan in 3 seasons. Good stuff. I have no questions.
Yes.
Didn't they close the hole in the ozone layer there?
He's reopening it.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's bringing it back. He's like JT. He's like Justin
Retro.
Timberlake. He's bringing ozone layer back.
I thought he was like a protector of the natural habitat, not one who would ruin it, though.
And what gives you that idea? He runs a load of
I'll say
kangaroos over.
Yeah, he said somebody's got to keep the outback beautiful. That's one of his quotes.
That's a purity thing, I think, rather than
Oh, so, okay, so you've interpreted it that way, have you? Okay.
Well, the hole in the ozone layer is not visible, Adam. It's not going to cause an eyesore.
Yeah, but it's giving people cancer, skin cancer, and Mick could be one of them.
Yeah, but he likes the look of it.
What, the ozone layer?
No, he likes the look of melanoma. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Here's a question I forgot to ask during the main body of the show. What do you think Mick smells like? Do you think he reeks of BO? Do you think he reeks of booze? Or do you think he reeks of, like, aftershave?
Aftershave, I reckon.
No, BO.
BO that's soaked into leather.
I think if he smelled of aftershave would be suspicious.
Old Spice, I reckon.
I was thinking brute.
Brute, yeah, brute. No, I don't know the science of ozone. But
good, so let's move on.
Seems believable to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
You do it with one couple.
Yeah.
One Swedish couple.
Yeah.
Swedish couple.
Blast them upwards like an inverted golden eye laser.
Yep.
If it happened in a comedy movie, you wouldn't question it. I think that's the rule we have to live by.
Okay, well, if there's no more questions for Ben, then let's move on to Adam.
As the Outback Nigel Farage, there's only one thing that Mick hates more than tourists.
How dare you?
And that's celebrity tourists, especially POM celebrity tourists. Mick knows that there are some truly disgusting celebrities that turn the stomach of even the most intolerant of intolerant people, even racists. Mick sets up a roadblock with a sign saying, "Please wait here for Outback Warden," and throws some burning tyres about. Pretty soon, a group of backpackers turns up, wondering what's going on, why the road is blocked. Out pops our Mick in his insincere, jovial way. "Turn around now, mates. What lies beyond these borders is a fate worse than death." The tourists look confused. "Excuse me, sir. May I kindly ask what you are talking about? We already know about the snakes and the spiders," says a crazy Dutch hippie guy wearing a tie and dye t-shirt. Mick grinds his teeth, not being able to be this close to a foreigner without showing some kind of physical revulsion. "They're filming a celebrity show out there. The most hideous celebrities. Liars, cheats, misogynists, polygamists, egotistamists, capitalists, and, of course, cunts." "Now, listen here, mate. We haven't got a fucking clue what you're banging on about," says someone in a gruff North Yorkshire tone. "For Christ's sake, mate, it's bloody Katie Hopkins and Piers Morgan. They're filming an Outback special and looking to sing Kumbaya fucking Ya round a campfire with other backpackers," says Mick. "My God!" shouts one tourist. "Katie fucking Hopkins? Has she had sex recently?" says another. Mick grins. "Not as far as I know, mate. And definitely not with anybody's husband in the field. For quite some time, I believe." "Oh, shit," says one person. "And if that wasn't bad enough, I've heard they've roped in Billy Ray Cyrus. He's jealous of his daughter's success and wants to get Achy Breaky Heart back into the charts." As most everyone would agree, one Cyrus in the charts, dry humping a dancer in a video is too much already. The assembled backpackers turn on their heels and flee. Flee for their equal lives, and to seek better entertainment in a true wilderness free of desperate celebrities. As a small sweetener, Mick has laid various bear traps surrounding the roadblock, which catches a number of the tourists as they run. Their screams of agony are mistaken for the painful thought of having to watch a single moment of Piers Morgan with his smug, slightly chubby face singing songs. Then Mick takes his time in butchering the unlucky few while he waits for the next bunch of campers to turn up.
Do they film I'm a Celebrity in the Outback? Or is that just a ruse?
It's just an Outback special.
Yeah,
It's an Outback special.
Outback special. Okay.
They're just like pretending to be backpackers, but going around trying to do all the things backpackers do, but with a film.
Oh, they're really there? I thought he was just making it up.
No, he's making it. He's making it up. Yeah,
Right,
yeah, and then getting to turn
Simple
around,
ruse.
and then obviously he's still got a massive bloodlust, and then he sets up some bear traps.
Bit of an outdated Miley Cyrus reference there, wasn't it? She's had a bit of a long and varied career since then.
Yeah, but it was regarding 2013. She was one of the most unpopular people in 2013,
Of course,
apparently.
right, yeah.
So I did my research.
Yeah. Google most unpopular celebs 2013.
I did. BuzzFeed.com. I'll show you. I've got the article here. I can show you.
I believe you.
Okay, good.
Wait, so what's the plan?
To basically put people off going into the Outback because there's a load of horrible celebrities nobody likes there.
Okay.
But not really.
But not really.
Right, okay.
But it's enough to turn the stomachs of most people.
I mean, there was a lot of diversity in that group of tourists. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Would they believe Mick?
Yeah, they would, yeah.
Okay.
All men, though, weren't they? All white as well.
No, I didn't say they were. No, they weren't all white. Oh.
Oh, there was definitely an Asian fella in there.
There was?
Yeah.
There was every colour of the rainbow.
Can I hear the Asian fella again? I missed him.
Maybe not.
Well, there's no more questions for the Adam, and then we will move on to Super Dude.
Well now, isn't this a novel experience for old Mick? Strapped to a chair, afraid and sweating, sick to his fucking stomach, surrounded by fucking drongos. But it doesn't take long for the jet to level out after takeoff, and the 8-hour flight will give him a chance to find his air legs. Once he does, the larrikin makes sure the flight is absolute torture for the poor fucker stuck in the window seat next to him, alternating between snoring loudly and waking periodically to provide crude, unhinged commentary for the various in-flight movies. When Harry met fucking Sally, more like when hairy cunt met fucking smelly cunt, am I right, mate? Throughout the flight, Mick would become increasingly agitated when his shrewd observations were not met with enthusiastic agreement from his travel companion, frustrated by his inability to rely on his usual outlets of physical torture and murder. Titanic, mate. More like fucking titwank. What the fuck do you know about movies anyway, you fucking Hollywood whore? Lapping up that studio slop like a good little piggy. Crocodile Dundee too, that's a fucking movie, mate. Good old Aussie movie. Not like the fucking first one where he goes, la-di-da, fucking New York. No, in the second one, mate, he fucking leaves New York and he goes back to Oz. Fuck the first one. Fucking cock and file undies. After following the poor fucker home and torturing him to death, Mick sets off for his original intended destination, a small office in New York that is home to talent manager and New Zealand Consulate Deputy Cultural Attaché Murray Hewitt. Fighting all his natural urges, Mick offers to help Murray run a smear campaign against Australia and its tourist board, while bolstering New Zealand as the preferred tourist mecca. They come up with the slogan, New Zealand, exactly like Australia in every way that counts, but not a filthy desert full of deadly spiders. And Mick helps pen the Flight of the Conchords' worldwide #1 smash hit, Kangaroos are mean bastards, stay away. Tourism in Australia dies a quick death, the best you can hope for when you cross Mick.
Do you know, I was very close to doing something similar to that because I wanted to get in the fence made out of toothbrushes into my plan.
Don't need it, mate. Got Ayers Rock. Great big rock.
Why did you do that as Ray Winston?
Mick hasn't actually seen Crocodile Dundee, if you remember the first film.
And this Crocodile Dundee 2.
But you said that it was way better than the first one, or is he just blustering because he hasn't seen it?
That's conjecture. He's sure it must be because he knows that in the first one he goes to dirty, filthy New York.
Okay, fine. What year was Flight of the Conchords on? When did that start?
2009, I think.
Does that timeline add up? Ben, you're the timeline expert.
Come on,
Do
let's
those
talk
timelines
timelines.
Yeah, 2007 to 2009.
It said, well, they formed in 1998 in Wellington, New Zealand.
So?
Yeah, no, so that's fine. It's just that in 2013, they'd be back in New Zealand
How so?
because they're back in New Zealand at the end of the series.
Well, I didn't say they were there. I just said that Murray was there.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Big woolly jumpers and wellies, as I recall.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, any more questions for Super Dude?
I don't know why, but air legs tickled me. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Is it? That was hilarious.
It's a Michael Jackson dance move, isn't it? Oh, he's doing the air legs.
I suppose my only other question is, what is it that Mick hates again? Remind me.
Tourist?
What do you find
Foreigners.
on airplanes typically?
Yeah, that's why I said he's got to swallow it for a bit to get his plan enacted. That was the
Okay.
whole point of describing how much he hates this person
Right, okay.
and then kills him.
Right, yeah.
You gotta take off your shoes and your socks and make fists with your toes so you get your air legs.
Son of a bitch.
Baseball glove full of Vaseline.
If we finish with Super Dude, then I will bring us home. Piss! Having a slash. Pissing out a slash. Slashing out a piss. Oh, I really scared the dog then. Oh dear. Draining the old velvet oboe. Stretching the handsome golem dry. Piss! That's what Mick Taylor thinks. He thinks about piss absolutely non-stop. The feel of it, the smell of it, the taste of it. Now, Mick has access naturally to an awful lot of animal piss. Hogs, roos, wombats, dingoes, echidnas, horny devils, and bilbies. Mick's got crates of the dead fuckers on the back of his ute. What he ought to do is, when eviscerating his conquests, take the bladders of each creature and empty the contents into a large airtight container in order to preserve the pungency of the piss. This would not be a quick process, perhaps taking as long as 10 years to gather the required amount of waste fluids. Once hundreds and hundreds of gallons of yellow, stinky, smelly piss have been gathered, Mick can begin to spread the feculence along the entry points at either end of the outback. It'll need a decent amount to not just soak into the earth and vanish, obviously, so may require a second coating. Once the ground is sufficiently saturated, the smelly smell will draw scores of the same animals towards its sweet, bitter scent. Muscly bastard boxing kangaroos, time-travelling whirling dervish dingoes, and the other ones initially listed. The main effect of this is the wildlife will form a protective shield into the outback which no human will be able to penetrate, save for Mick and the people living in the little shanty towns inside the vast wasteland.
Is this why you asked us what we think Mick smells like?
No.
Is it worse than piss? No, good.
Out of all those animals, which one has the smelliest piss? Would you say, in your humble opinion?
Oh, it's got to be kangaroo, isn't it?
I reckon, yeah. They must be like the most dehydrated.
Yeah, because they're so ripped, aren't they? They're competition ready, aren't they?
They're vascular, aren't they? Yeah.
So their piss comes out creamy. It's so thick.
Yeah.
Oh, you can spread it on a slice of toast.
I can't believe it's not wallaby piss.
I would imagine you could probably... You'd be wary of barging through a wall of roos.
Yeah.
But if you got to a bit of the wall where there was just a few dingoes, you'd just kick them out of the way, wouldn't you? Kick them to death.
Kick them to death. No, because then they might eat your baby.
Yeah, they could, yeah. Especially if you've got a pram. They'd be all over it.
Or what about like a koala? Give a koala the boot.
They're vicious little fuckers, aren't they? Scratching give you chlamydia, don't they? Little bastards.
I kind of like this piss plan because it comes from a man who has a dog and knows full well the smell of piss will attract canines, I think. And I think it's like one of those things that the smell of piss is bad enough, but then there'll also be like you say, like dingoes, wild dogs contribute also contributing to that piss once it's already there by pissing on it with their own piss.
Trying to claim it.
Yeah.
But it'd be a never-ending cycle, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's just going to be a tidal wave of piss.
Is he bringing more animals into the outback?
I guess he could just stop culling them, because that is officially his job, that he keeps the population down. That is like a real outback job, isn't it? To go around shooting roos and whatnot.
Mm.
So I guess he'd just stop doing that for a bit. For 10 years or so. The population would be wildly out of control.
Yeah. Because imagine like all those animals are already pissing there.
But not in one straight
Concentrated.
line.
Not in a straight line. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Across the entire border at both ends of the outback. So thought of everything, didn't I?
Wouldn't they just bring in the army to take care of this? And if you remember, the Australian army, they got those little cool Australian hats, don't they?
Ooh,
The
they
little
bend up on
plastic
one side.
army men. Yeah.
I don't think Australia's got an army.
Yeah, they have.
I think that's true.
They wear tan uniforms and their skin colour is tan.
Yeah, they are. I've been.
And they're
I've
made
been
out
on,
of plastic.
I've been on detachments with the Australian Air Force.
You haven't.
And the whole point
No
of
such thing.
that half-folded hat is to use the other side to waft piss smells away.
Those plans were jowl-rattlingly evil, weren't they? We had Ben's plan to localise a new hole in the ozone layer to give everybody skin cancer, to make everybody think they'll get skin cancer. Adam's plan to stage a Outback version of I'm a Celebrity. To what? To lure people in? No, to put them off.
Put them off.
Put them off. I should have written more notes. Super Dude's plan to join up with Murray, the manager of Flight of the Conchords, to conduct a tourist smear campaign against Australia. And my own plan to kind of do a Donald Trump and build a border wall, but the wall consists of piss. But there can only be 1, 2, 3, or 4 of us who get points on the board. So with that, if we could all cast our votes at this time.
And they make this wall, and they make it from piss. And it's a very good wall.
It's a great wall.
And we're going to make them pay for the piss.
They'll smell of piss and they'll say, that piss not nice.
You don't see piss these days, do you? You see it everywhere. Don't see it anymore. Sad.
It's very sad. It's very sad.
They're drinking the people's piss.
The late great Hannibal Lecter used to talk about piss all the time. No more.
He said he's having piss for dinner, wouldn't he?
How come you can all do really good Donald Trump impressions? I never knew about it.
I didn't know I could until today.
I've never really tried properly because I'm into awe of people who can really do really good ones.
I'm so impressed.
Okay, let's see who everybody voted for and if we could reveal, starting with Super Dude.
Well, I made no secret of it. It's his best plan in a long time. It's Ben.
Oh, I won him over straight away.
Yes.
One on the Ben. In that
Sympathy
case,
vote.
let's see whom Ben voted for.
Well, it's going to seem like I'm giving him the old reach around, but I've got a soft spot for Flight of the Conchords and in particular Murray Hewitt, so I vote for Super Dude and I've drawn a little poster that says Super Dude rocks.
And it says rock.
Wow.
Great big rock.
Yeah. So there you go.
And Adam, who did you cast your vote for?
Well, as soon as I heard this plan, it blew the piss out of me. So I voted for Gaz. And the Z,
It's a cock and balls.
the Z has got a little cock on it and it's pissed on the floor.
And I can't actually remember who I voted for, so this is going to be a surprise to everybody when I lower my thing. I voted for Ben!
Ben!
Whoa!
There we go.
Wonderful. Good to know.
Who I voted for.
I wrote it down so long ago. So after this week's episode, the scores stand at, in the lead with 14 points is Adam.
Ooh.
Joint second place with 12 points apiece are Super Dude and Gaz.
Ooh.
And just a couple of points behind with 10, it's Ben.
Ooh.
I'm coming at you. I'm coming at you, boys.
That will do us for another batch of evil schemes, but we shall return next Monday for another dose of podcasting with a terrific to choice from Super Dude. What you picking, Cobber?
It's a continuation of Spooktober, of course. The finale of Spooktober, in fact. And you guys have been kind enough to drag me to 80s dark fantasy films that I don't particularly care for, but, some of them won me over. But I do have one that I've always loved. My favourite of this particular genre, I guess you would call it. It's a quasi-sequel, spiritual sequel. It is Return to Oz.
Oh, I've never seen it before.
Never seen it before.
Really?
Seen it
Oh,
before.
you're
Hope
in
you'll
for a
enjoy it.
treat.
Join us next week as we discuss Princess Mombi's evil scheme. Until then, remember, everything will be alright in the end, and if it isn't alright, then it isn't the end.
A tiny kangaroo down sport.
Tommy kangaroo down. Tommy kangaroo down. Sport. Tommy kangaroo down. Fuck a wallaby.
The cat looks very shocked by that.
You weren't expecting that, were you, pussy?
Pussy. So you weren't expecting that, were you, pussy?
You weren't expecting that, were you, pussy? Got to do with Groucho at the end.
It was released on the 30th of August 2013 at the Venice Film Festival, and then released... what? It was... I'm going to do that sentence again. That should be premiered.
Like the premiere in.
Don't even... Premiered. It was released... I still said it was released. Fucking dick.
England.